This is the NativeScript community chat for July 15th. And kicking things off, I want to start with the Angular 10 support, which is in RC right now. So we've had this working for close to 2 weeks now, actually, on a PR. It's on a branch. And we're in RC, not so much for Angular, actually, more so for core. In the process of updating for Angular 10, we are trying to take every pass with no shortcuts, no easy workarounds, kind of the full Monty. And one of those things was core modules. Had been needing some cleanup for several years. We've touched on this on some other community calls, but to make a long story short, we have the Monorepo PR up now, and it cleans up a lot of stuff in core that's lingered for some old TypeScript. So that's more why it's in RC. We'll keep it in RC for just a couple other days, but we are going to put a blog post up that will basically have instructions to how to update to it. Use the RCs that are all posted up, so for anyone that wants to try it, we'll be able to try it. We've been running it against some community member projects currently, so Ken on the call, we've been working with him on his particular project and updating it to Angular 10, and we're also doing the same with Dave. And we may do the same with some others too. So once the blog post is up, if you're interested in trying the Angular 10 RC with the details there, and if you run into any issues, we'll want to be pretty tight with you, and we'll help you get past those and clear things up. So again, just to reiterate, Angular 10 support is in RC, and the RC is because of core modules. So what we decided to do with NativeScript core is we wanted to invert the approach that the prior core team did when they kind of transitioned from tns-core-modules to NativeScript core. The first approach was to actually add NativeScript core as a transient dependency to tns-core-modules. We want to go at it from the inverse route. The reason is we want to take an approach more similar to rxjs from 5 to 6. If anyone was involved in Angular at that time, they might recall that. And some people actually may still use rxjs-compat today, but it'd be a similar strategy. The only difference is we're going to make it transparent to all of you. So tns-core-modules will basically be a compat layer that'll be a transient dependency to NativeScript core. And so most out there have already moved to NativeScript core for the most part. The big thing that lingers out there is probably plugins that use tns-core-module deep imports. So mainly the compat layer is going to solve those deep import issues on those plugins. And it'll basically allow those plugins to kind of slowly update over time. And we'll probably keep it that way through the rest of 2020 at least, until we get a pretty firm confidence that most plugins have cleansed themselves out. In the process, NativeScript CLI, we are scoping the CLI. You'll also be able to install it through just the NativeScript npm package, as you've always been able to do. But just in keeping with some of the 2020 goals, we're going to scope that as well. It also introduces an NSC alias to TNS. TNS will always work. That will never go away, just because there's so much documentation, Stack Overflow, and other things stated TNS. That will likely never go away. But we will start introducing probably NSC and things that we present and talk about over time. It's generally meant to kind of be like Java-C. This is the NativeScript compiler, or NativeScript in general. But that's kind of a moniker we came up with to slowly start moving away from TNS. So this more falls in lines with kind of the 2020 goals to, again, scope everything, make it more true to the NativeScript name, and move things slowly away from TNS. So that's actually out there now. And the Angular 10 support that's in RC, to use it, you'll actually use an RC of the CLI that allows full scoped packages. So again, don't worry about those details right now today. And if you're anxious to get into Angular 10, we're anxious as well to get a blog post up with some clarity on how to update there. So we'll be tweeting out when that goes up, and definitely would love to have, especially anyone on this call and listening, to give it a shot. And then next week, Alex Zisk and I are going to do a live stream on updating to Angular 10. We tried this I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but we did this on Angular 9. It went well, albeit 15 minutes of pretty brutal, painful live stream technical issues. But it looks like I think Alex has got it sorted out now. So hopefully next week when we start it, it'll be smooth sailing. But it was helpful to kind of get in because it was a project that was on an older Angular version, and we just updated it kind of one step at a time, went through pitfalls and problems and kind of troubleshoot them on the fly. So we'll try to do the same thing with Angular 10 there. But luckily for anyone that has taken the step and updated to Angular 9, it's worth stating that all the things you did are applicable to Angular 10. So those are all good things that you did there. Angular 10, of course, adds some improvements to ngcc handling. For instance, if you're familiar with the ngcc config file, that'll still be around for some time, mainly to support plugins that weren't built with ngpackager. So we built the Angular 10 support for NativeScript with ngpackager, and that in the process actually makes it compatible with Ivy right out of the box. So you actually do not need the NativeScript Angular entry in the ngcc file anymore. And that's also going to be a pathway for other plugin developers who have Angular support in their plugins to build. So probably after this Angular 10 blog post goes up, we'll post another blog about plugin development in general and just how you can add ngpackager in to make your plugins also support that new version. And again, they'll support them right when it comes out. The only difference is you would use ngcc to make them work with your Angular 10 project. All right, so that's kind of the status of Angular 10. I'll give a quick update on the status of UI Suite plugins. A lot of questions on the NativeScript Slack and also across the board, just in general with UI Suite. I think we stated it in previous community chats before, but we want to slowly move away from the UI Suite, and so we're starting a process of introducing some alternatives, mainly because we want to go to pure open source alternatives since the UI Suite is private source and will continue to be so. So we want to kind of move and introduce some nice alternatives that we think actually will be better alternatives and more flexible. One of which I think Shiva is going to show off today, a HighCharts alternative replacement. And Shiva, you just let me know if when you're ready, if you want to show off any of that.
Yep. In just about 5 minutes from now.
Perfect. Yep. Perfect. So we'll swing back to Shiva in just a minute. So also the overview of the Monorepo of NativeScript. So we're excited to finally give just a little bit of a preview of what this means. We've talked a bit about it, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot until you kind of see exactly what it means. So this is the PR that is going to be this Monorepo approach. It's a lot of changes, but these changes are actually all tracked through Git history. This is going to maintain all of the history from the repo, but it transforms the organization to look something like this. It'll be much more simplified and probably standard to what you've seen with potentially some other large open source projects, namely Facebook React. If you've ever looked at their repo, you'll notice a lot of similarities. This is a pretty nice and scalable structure for open source in general. But for us in particular, one thing and why we've been striving for this for quite some time is because of the maintenance cost and keeping things up to date across the whole stack. So Webpack, for instance, is something that we'll be managing inside here. This source of Webpack is actually linked against all of the testing EDE harness targets that are in here. That'll allow us to kind of do on every pass, if we want to update to latest Webpack changes, we can do so kind of in a full swoop along with everything else all together here. And that way we don't have to traverse so many repos and test against different Git targets that way. So it'll make it all in all like quite a bit nicer and faster to maintain. Also inside here, you'll notice types Android, types iOS. This is actually a split of the iOS and Android typings that come right now with TNS platform declarations. So in the Monorepo, we're actually going to be splitting these into two, and we'll still be publishing a singular package, and it'll be on NPM as NativeScript types. So it's actually going to be published like this. That's going to be the equivalent of TNS platform declarations. Again, most of this will be seamless. Some of these will be transient dependencies already on project setups, but we want to split these because as we broaden NativeScript's ability to be plug and play with different JavaScript development stacks, we want to be sure that you can use what you need. And just like we mentioned on previous community calls, some of our own clients actually have had just Android NativeScript developments, and vice versa, some just iOS Android or just iOS NativeScript developments. And in those cases, we don't need full typings for Android, which are quite heavy actually. So we could just install the iOS declarations for those particular projects, and you out there could do the same. So this is in general the structure. Most everything is going to be with the streamlined build commands, which we may wrap into NPM before this actually hits master. But generally everything will be run in a pretty consistent pattern, whether you're running unit tests against core, actually doing an NPM build. Again, if you were developing changes yourself and trying to do deep changes to core for anything that you want in core or that you want to experiment with in core, you can actually create a local NPM pack and even link that against your own projects if you wanted to kind of experiment. So generally, the process and for everything that will be built and streamlined here will kind of follow a similar pattern to build. And this Angular is the placeholder for Angular 11. So this is also where we'll be doing the Angular 11 rewrite there. Let's see. So like I mentioned, Angular 10 live stream next week. I was going to mention if you haven't already, the YouTube channel for NativeScript is NativeScript videos on YouTube. Alexander Ziskin, this is Native Scripting. These two channels, we're going to probably put all of the contributing videos on NativeScript videos. And then Alex is continually publishing some videos based on either new features that go into core and general tips and tricks as he's always done. So certainly those two channels are really useful to subscribe to and also kind of get some insight into, I think, a number of things that will be occurring over the next couple weeks for sure. Also the two Twitter channels, the official NativeScript and also Native Scripting as well, since generally Alex will share videos on Native Scripting. So those are two good channels to follow. And with that, Shiva, let me know, are you getting close to a point?
Yes, hold on, just building iOS and it's just ready.
Okay. While we're waiting for Shiva there, we'll go to Q&A. Anyone on the call have any current pending questions?
Yeah, hello. You mentioned something about ng packager. What exactly is that?
ng packager is a nice utility that is used to build Angular libraries. And what it does is it automatically builds UMD, ES 2015, CommonJS modules, and then it sets their keys inside the package. So that way, depending on the target of the actual project, end project that's going to use it, it can actually know what the proper entry points are. And that's, in fact, what allows you to omit that plugin from ngCC. So without that, generally the package on any, right now, NativeScript Angular plugin has usually a main key in the package. That's often CommonJS. But in Angular 10, they actually dropped support for ES5, gone ES 2015. And so ngCC has to make sure that those libraries are basically cross-compiled for those targets. And that's effectively what ngCC does in part. But ng packager basically allows you to prepare your library to be compatible with those different engines kind of out of the box.
Okay, so it's not NativeScript Angular specific, but it's just Angular in general specific.
It's just Angular in general, yeah. Okay. And in fact, I would believe probably most Angular libraries that are out there already use it and have been using it, I think, for quite some time. It's been around for a while. Definitely didn't come out this year, I don't believe. But it's a nice,
I've been using it for 5 years now. Yeah. On the ground floor of it. It's fantastic. Nice. And the Angular team has basically adopted it. It was its own project, and then they've officially adopted it. So.
Yeah, I didn't know it'd been around quite that long. Wow. Yeah, it's a really, really nice tool for, I mean, if you're doing any Angular development at all, especially libraries and plugins, it's kind of a must. So yeah, we wanted to go ahead and get that in for Angular 10 right out of the box because that's the way it should have been for sure. I guess I'll also mention that sometime next week we have some official support options that we're going to post on the website to give those who are in a bind, at least if they're in with companies and they really need some more steady responses and steady support. We're going to post quite a bit of different packages that hopefully will offer some decent options for people to kind of get support that they need. And if anyone out there does NativeScript development on their own, freelancer, if they are a development shop that does NativeScript work and you want to be a service provider listed and a preferred partner on the NativeScript site, please email support@nativescript.org and we'd be happy to list your shop there. And you could also even help others in servicing support contracts as well. So definitely reach out to us and let us know if that applies to you.
Sweet, Nathan, I'm ready.
Great. So we'll turn it over.
I have one question before Shiva starts.
Sure, Diego.
Maybe. One simple thing. So those that are still with Angular 8, should we update to Angular 9 and after that to Angular 10, or like all the breaking changes are applicable to Angular 10?
Yes,
should we just wait?
That's a great question. I would honestly recommend go ahead with the update process, and because the update for Angular 9 is almost identical to Angular 10, with the exception of probably NGCC where you don't have to name NativeScript Angular. The environment AOT flag is going to be automatic, so that'll be on by default in the new Webpack configs for Angular 10. But outside of that, everything else is the same. You still want to move to @NativeScript Angular scope for the imports, which cleans up and helps the AOT compilation. And then the TS config changes will also be the same. So really all that's going to be probably different between 9 and 10 is the versions that you'll target, and probably some very subtle things outside of that. So it's very much worth starting the update process if you're in a position to do that update. That's a really good question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Shiva, let me stop the screen and I'll let you take it over. So Shiva's going to share a UI charts alternative. It is the official wrapper Android iOS around HighCharts, which offers a really high degree of flexibility in the styling, which is something that I think many have always complained about with the UI Suite charts. Oh, hang on, Shiva, I may need to enable it for you. There you go. It should be enabled now.
Okay, let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it.
Okay, great. So at Bevy, where I work, we wanted to use some different charts plugin when compared to NativeScript charts because it was not flexible enough for us. And that's when we started using HighCharts, but we were using it inside WebView. And using HighCharts plugin inside of WebView is not that bad. You can get pretty much any type of chart you want. But then at the end of the day, that was not feeling very native to us, and we were getting some sort of like WebView related crash errors and stuff like that. That's when we decided that we should try venturing into getting the native wrapper for HighCharts running on NativeScript. And so here's the plugin that we have written with that. It's still sort of in alpha state. So all the functionality of charts is not available with the plugin just yet, but we are constantly working on it. And by the time you guys will get to work on it, there'll be a lot of cool things you can do with it. So let's see what it looks like. And that's the reveal. And that's NativeScript, the HighCharts plugin, which we are going to call at NativeScript /UI charts, which is going to be the next charts replacement. And as you can see, it's going to be like a declarative UI where you're going to be able to set different data points directly from XML. As of now, the actual data itself is being passed from onloaded event. This is where we are setting the series and stuff. But eventually, all those things will be configurable directly from XML. And as you can see, it's a pretty native experience. So the iOS is running on simulator, but I can just show you that the experience is super identical. You'll get the same experience and same smoothness on iOS and Android, and everything is configurable. Like this label is configurable. You'll be able to configure the background, what goes on the x-axis, y-axis, and there are so many different type of chat options that are available. Like you can create 3D chats, pie charts, line, spline, bar, you name it, and this chats plugin has it. But the thing is, as of now, all the chat options are not ready yet. So that's why we're still working on it. But we're pretty excited to bring this to you. And major shout out to Marco Heinz. He started working on it. He is my colleague at Bevy, and he started working on this plugin. And let me show you something nice here. So you see that this chart is currently, all three of these charts is currently showing one series. So you can provide like multiple series to show on the chart. Like for example, I can add one more series, and you see it's going to render with 2 series now. So there's one series at the top, one series at the bottom, and you can control like what color you want for the series, everything. Like right now, it's pretty much set with like whatever background color that we have set from here. But by the time this plugin reaches you, you'll be able to set all of these from XML and configure the chart the way you want. And it can support any number of series. You can control the max number of data points that's needed. If you have large data sets, you can control the step count, how many data points should be skipped in between, and so on. And you'll get that native experience. We also want to add support for enabling full screen so that you can just tap a button and then go full screen from the chat mode. So those are all some planned features. And you'll also be able to customize what is shown inside this label. Like for example, here we're setting what should be shown as the label here. It says calories and the value suffix is kilocal. So we're getting that and everything. Yep.
Shiva, that is gorgeous. You know, I know one pain point we had on HighCharts, the UI Suite plugin is doing gradient fills like that, as well as kind of nice interaction points and broad control over the labeling styling. So it's really, really exciting to see this type of display and control over the chart. This is nice.
Yep. So one thing about using HighCharts though is that they have a licensing, which is sort of I was reading about it recently. It's sort of like a good faith license. So everything of HighCharts is ready to use without buying a license, but it's like a good faith license. So HighCharts actually provides you free license if you're using it non-commercially, but if you're using it commercially, they recommend you buy a license for it, which is available on their website.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's always nice to contribute and donate back to open source for sure if you're using it. And yeah, HighCharts has done a tremendous job with high fidelity charts, but also just the degree of control and customization they allow. So yeah, this is really exciting to see. Thanks for sharing that, Shiva.
Sweet.
I'll take the screen back just to wrap up. So if anyone else has any questions on anything there, feel free to ask. And I think over the next week or two, we want to try to share some.
I have a question on the UI. Charts. Is that going to be part? That's going to be the Monorepo, or part of the?
We may bring that. We may bring that in the Monorepo. I think we're still probably trying to define what line we want to keep things out and keep things in. I think where the line ultimately resides is if the maintenance of the plugin needs to be tightly maintained with the whole stack of versions, then it probably makes sense in the Monorepo to maintain. However, if it's wholly, fully decoupled, then it probably could maintain outside. So it probably will still continue to be a case-by-case thing, depending on what makes sense there.
Okay, but because I don't see it in the NPM, I guess it's not released yet. Then.
No, yeah, I don't think
Shiva.
Yeah,
no.
Okay. It's awesome, Shiva. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think Shiva too. Probably as you get closer, it may be worth going into an alpha or a beta on it, and some people in the community could play around with it too, and get some feedback.
Yes. We're targeting alpha sometime in this month, probably by the end of the month.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Shiva, is HighCharts, is that web view based?
HighCharts.js is WebView based, but let me, I can go back to sharing screen and you can actually look at the HighCharts Android runtime. So it says that they've written this Java wrapper around their whole HighCharts API. So that's what it is. It's pretty native. Like it is using native views under the hood.
Oh wow!
So just see, so it's now available in Android with a new Java wrapper. So it's basically, it feels native to use. Like when you use it, you'll know that it is native.
And that's the same for the iOS side as well. It's native views,
Yes,
is it?
it is.
Very impressive stuff.
Yep.
I was wondering also, is there a general plan to migrate? So basically, at the moment, all the rapid application development plugins, the RAD plugins, they're still closed source stuff owned by Telerik. Is there a general plan to re-implement things like RAD list view with something open source? Because I think they had a charts plugin. I'm not really sure, but clearly this could replace that as a starting point, for example.
I can speak to that. Yeah, the CollectionView from Martin in the community is a good candidate we're looking at to replace RAD list view. There's still some other takes that I think it could go, but his is the closest, I think. There's only 3, I think, remaining features to implement, and I think it's related to grouping and sorting and that sort of thing, which also is something you can do to the data transformation before you bind it to. So it's really not a necessary feature. In a lot of ways, the RLV with grouping and sorting too didn't work and adapt to certain situations you wanted to use that. So it's worth, probably debating as to how valuable it is to actually have something like that in there out of the box. But yeah, CollectionView is likely to be a candidate replacement for RLV. Side drawer, I think Igor has done the implementation on side drawer that's a lot more stable and perhaps simplistic too to integrate. So hopefully 3 or 4 of the big ones that are in use can have a nice open source alternative in the next couple weeks.
One question. So what's the difference between CollectionView and the RAD list view? I mean, apart from the fact that one is open source and the one is closed source, maybe?
Right. Probably what we should do is just like Shiva talking through charts. We'll see if Martin can join a call. And I know this time has been a problem for him before because he's in France, I believe. But we'll see if we can get him on a call and maybe go through that a bit, in detail. The main difference really is private versus open because it's still using UI collection view under the hood, just like RAD list view, except RAD list view uses a lot of proprietary UI core base, which is also a Telerik developed UI core base library.
Okay, I was asking before because just like, I don't know, this Monday, we had to do, at Polaru, we had to do, in a way, like the grouping, like this feature of the contacts app when you you swipe and it changes, but it shows the latest group on the top, like fixed. I think they are called sticky headers. Maybe it was out of our ignorance, but we didn't manage to see any built-in function to enable the sticky headers on the rat list view. And also we wanted to do, in a way, like a custom sticky header, as in that we didn't want the sticky header to be at the top of the rat list view, but instead like outside, because we wanted to do like a smooth transition, like an animation. We in the end managed to do it with the rat list view, but now that you're saying that you might replace it, okay, so maybe that's a yellow or a red flag for us, especially since we're so early in the development of that component.
We still use them, I'll say, on current projects. So, I would say if you're going to use the UI Pro suite, it's not that you need to switch or not use them right now. I think you got to be real clear in stating that, we still use the UI suite ourselves on a lot of day-to-day projects. It's more a long-term thing, I think, to slowly move away from them. So more if you're in a bind on something with that UI suite, reach out to support at nativescript.org. Just send us an email with the detail of what issue you're running into, and we can try to work together with progress to try to get a PR posted on some of those, perhaps to help some cases there. But definitely let us know if you're like in a bind. Sticky headers, I think.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm just going to send you a video where I can show you exactly what I'm talking about.
That's helpful.
Right now. If you wanna share it, I think that's okay with us, so that people can see. If you can't, well, like if you don't want, or you are like we're not running out of time, that's okay as well. I'm going to send it to you right away.
Yeah, that'd be great. Videos are always helpful for sure. And certainly in the case where we're kind of collaborating on a project, it's always nice to collaborate on an actual repo rather than share zip files back and forth.
To interrupt quick, iOS, well, UI Collection has a built-in, you could say, function that you could, wrap, that you can get the sticky headers. Because I used it initially when I did the accordion view, but we can wrap into it and you could style the header as you please.
Okay, that with UI collection.
Yeah, you can. There's a section. I think section is the function. But it's not built in. Well, rad list view. But yeah, you can use section if you built a custom list view. You can more than wrap into that.
Okay.
That's good to know.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Diego, once you send that video, that might make a good topic to cover a bit on next week's call too, for anyone out there kind of in a similar situation. And I think perhaps in general, questions on UI Suite in general might be good we can all expand on that and perhaps use your example as a starting point.
Okay, will do.
Does anyone else have any other question they would like to ask? I appreciate everyone again hopping on. It's great to get involvement, I would say, from everyone out there. So I really appreciate those hopping on. And whether you're just listening or have a question, you always feel like this is a safe place to come to. I feel like you can ask any question here anytime. Our goal is to be as transparent as possible. And along with those lines that we mentioned on a prior call, we're working on those code of governance docs. And I think we mentioned on the last call, we're going to start an admin repo. It might be called management. Webpack has a management repo as well for high-level docs like that. And we want to state that there because anyone out there that wants to be a part of what we will call the TSC, what's often known on open source projects as kind of the technical steering committee, we want to provide a roadmap for others to be part of that with us, certainly for those that are interested in being on that level of it for sure. So we want to try to provide some clarity on how others can do that. But you guys have a great rest of the week, and really appreciate everyone's attention today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nathan.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much, Shiva.
All right.
Especially for the debug layouts videos that you have been uploaded on Android and iOS. Those were helpful for us.
Oh, thank you.
Shiva, yes, thank you for all you've done. And really appreciate you hopping on early. He's in New Zealand, so this was very early in the morning for him. So thank you, Shiva.
Thanks, Shiva.
All right. Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.